The night glittered like a living thing. The red carpet outside the Global Vision Award shimmered under 1,000 camera flashes, every strobe freezing the chaos into brief, blinding fragments. A famous actress laughing, a diamond necklace glinting, a journalist lunging forward with a microphone. The air pulsed with noise. The whir of lenses, the hum of drones overhead, the high-pitched chorus of fans pressed against steel barricades, screaming names they'd never personally know. Over here! Over here! Photographers shouted, their voices colliding with the echo of shoes striking marble. It was a kind of night where everything was exaggerated. The colors, the applause, the vanity, a choreography of ego wrapped in elegance. But beneath the glitter and noise, there was tension too, the kind that hums unseen, waiting for its moment. That moment arrived when the next car pulled up. A black Mercedes Maybach slid to a stop at the edge of the carpet, its engine purring low and confident. The driver stepped out and opened the door with mechanical precision. Out stepped Darius Cole, tall, composed, the sort of man whose presence quieted a room even before he spoke. His suit, midnight charcoal, fit like it had been engineered rather than tailored. His cufflinks caught the light, platinum, understated, elegant. For a split second, the camera flashes faltered. A pause rippled through the crowd. He wasn't instantly recognizable like the actors before him, but there was something about his stillness, the self-possession in his stride, that drew eyes anyway. Then the equilibrium shattered. "Sir," the voice cut through the air like the crack of a whip. A woman in a headset and clipboard stepped forward from the line of event staff. Her name was Lena Harrow, lead coordinator of the award ceremony. She moved with the brisk authority of someone used to being obeyed. "This section is for VIP guests and nominees only," she said firmly, planting herself directly in his path. Darius paused mid-step. The flashes resumed, brighter now, the tension feeding the spectacle. A dozen phones tilted toward him. "I'm aware," he said calmly, his tone polite but resolute. "Then you'll understand why I need to see your credentials." He slipped a hand inside his jacket, drew out a slim black lanyard, and handed it over without a word. She glanced at it, frowned, and typed something into her tablet. A small error beeped. She looked up sharply. "This isn't a valid pass, sir." The word "sir" landed heavy, not respectful, but condescending. Darius's expression didn't change. "You might want to refresh your system." Lena's lips pressed into a thin line. "We run the most secure event in the world. No refresh needed." She gestured to one of the nearby security guards, a broad-shouldered man with an earpiece and a wary gaze. "Escort him to the side, please. We'll sort this out away from the cameras." That phrase, "away from the cameras," only guaranteed the opposite. The moment the guard moved, the photographers reacted like sharks scenting blood. "What's going on there?" "Who's that guy?" "Security's pulling someone off the carpet." Click, click, click. 100 flashes in under 10 seconds. A reporter shouted, "Sir, what's your name?" Darius didn't answer. He stood perfectly still, eyes level, voice even. "You don't need to touch me." The guard hesitated. Something about Darius's calmness unsettled him. It wasn't arrogance. It was control, a quiet kind of authority that didn't need to shout. But Lena pressed on, voice sharp and performative. "You need to move now. This is for authorized attendees only. You can't just walk onto a world stage like this." The crowd reacted instantly. Murmurs, whispers, a few nervous laughs. He just walked up? Maybe he's a journalist. Or one of those protest guys. Someone held up a phone, live streaming the entire exchange. Darius's eyes flicked briefly toward the cameras, then back to Lena. "I walked in through the same entrance as everyone else," he said softly. "Your scanner made a mistake, not me." Lena scoffed. "Our scanners don't make mistakes. You people always—" She caught herself too late, the phrase hanging in the air like smoke. The crowd stiffened. The fans behind the barriers fell quiet. Even the background chatter, the laughter, the interviews, the music playing faintly from inside, seemed to dim. The subtext of her words had landed exactly where everyone understood it would. "You people—" Darius didn't blink. His silence was measured, deliberate. He wasn't going to rescue her with a reaction. He simply looked at her, letting the weight of her own words echo between them. Lena's face flushed, but she doubled down, as people often do when they realize too late that they've gone too far. "Sir, please don't make a scene. We have protocols." "Then follow them," he said. Her jaw tightened. "I am." The guard shifted his stance, uncertain now. Even he could feel the crowd's attention turning. Not toward Darius as a problem, but toward the way Lena was handling him. A voice from the press section whispered, "Wait! That's Darius Cole, isn't it? The Silence Group guy." Another replied, "Can't be. He wouldn't show up without an entourage." But Lena didn't hear them. She was focused on control, on being right, on preserving her authority before the lenses of the world. "I'm asking you one last time," she said, her tone clipped and final. "Leave the carpet, or I'll have you escorted off." Darius took one slow step forward. He wasn't defying her, just reclaiming his ground. "You've already made your choice," he said quietly. "Now let's see what it costs you." The phrase wasn't shouted, but it landed like a verdict. The guard faltered again. Lena's tablet beeped once more, a second error code flashing in red. She frowned, confused. "That's strange," she muttered, tapping the screen. "Network glitch." Behind her, the giant LED billboard above the theater glowed white, then flickered. For a split second, the sponsor reel froze mid-animation. Silence Group's logo blinked across the display. The name hung over the red carpet, like a silent witness. And suddenly, the murmurs in the press pit grew louder. "Wait, Silence? That's his company." "Are you serious? Then why is she—" The noise swelled. Phones turned. Cameras zoomed in. Lena realized too late what was happening. She opened her mouth to speak, but her earpiece buzzed violently in her ear. Static, then silence. The system was down. Her control gone. Darius didn't move. He didn't smirk. He didn't need to. He simply stood under the glare of the red carpet lights, calm, centered, unmoved, while chaos unfolded around him. One voice from the crowd shouted, "That's him. He owns the broadcasting network." Lena froze. Her hand dropped from the tablet, which now displayed nothing but a blank white screen. The guard took an instinctive step back. And in that pocket of silence, as the world's cameras turned toward him, Darius Cole said softly, almost like a whisper meant for history, "Every story begins with a mistake. Let's make sure this one's recorded correctly." The flashes erupted again, brighter, faster, blinding. The night of celebration had just become the stage for something far more unforgettable. And Darius Cole had just begun. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to support the channel. The silence that followed his words didn't feel like peace. It felt like pressure, the kind that builds before a storm. Every camera pointed at him now. Every reporter's mic tilted forward. The flashes came again, but slower this time, deliberate, as if the crowd instinctively knew that whatever was happening on that red carpet was no longer entertainment. It was something else. Lena Harrow, the event coordinator, straightened her blazer and forced a brittle smile. "Let's not dramatize this, sir," she said, her voice too bright, too forced. "We have a very strict entry system. If your name's not on the list, you don't belong on this carpet." The word "belong" sliced through the air like a blade. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. That word carried weight. It was the kind that didn't just question credentials. It questioned identity. Darius Cole stood motionless, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his phone loosely by his side. The light from the LED screen overhead bathed his face in shifting colors, blue, white, gold. But his expression never changed. Calm, composed, almost too composed. "Check again," he said quietly. Lena's voice tightened. "I told you, you're not on the list. You can wait behind a press barricade like the rest of the—" She stopped herself. But everyone heard the word she didn't finish. The rest of the crowd. A young security guard, barely out of his 20s, shifted beside her. His name tag read A. Torres. His eyes flicked from Darius to the glowing tablet in Lena's hands. "Ma'am," he said softly, "maybe the system's—" "Torres," she snapped, "don't question the system. Do your job." "Yes, ma'am." He stepped back, jaw tightening. From behind the barricades, the murmurs grew louder. Someone said, "Isn't it the guy from that Forbes article last month?" Another voice replied, "Yeah, the tech mogul. I swear that's him." A third voice, "No way. He wouldn't be standing out here if he was." The disbelief, the confusion, all fed into the moment, a living organism of doubt. Lena turned toward the growing crowd. "Everyone, please step back. We need to keep the carpet clear." But no one moved. The sight of this man, elegant, quiet, outnumbered yet unmoved, had magnetized them. Then, in one deliberate motion, Darius raised his phone. He didn't point like a weapon, just held it up calmly, visibly. "This entire exchange is being recorded," he said evenly. "For your sake, I suggest accuracy." That simple statement hit harder than a shout. Lena's smile cracked. "Are you threatening me?" "No," Darius said softly. "I'm protecting you." The words hung in the air, heavy with an implication she couldn't yet see. A murmur of excitement swept through the press pit. Microphones appeared like flowers blooming in spring. The event that had been all glamour minutes ago was now the story of the night. "Sir, can you tell us your name?" a journalist called out. Another shouted, "Are you being profiled, Mr. Cole?" Lena's eyes widened. "Cole?" she echoed, the name landing like a stone in her chest. "Yes," a reporter confirmed, flipping through her notes. "Darius Cole, CEO of Silence Media, global sponsor of the Vision Awards." The color drained from Lena's face. She looked back at her tablet, frantically scrolling, but the system had frozen again, the Silence logo flashing faintly in the corner like a mocking signature. I think there's been a misunderstanding," she stammered. The crowd's tone changed instantly, anger mixing with awe. "Misunderstanding? You just try to kick out the guy funding the show," someone yelled from the barricade. "Get her off the mic," another voice shouted. Lena's polished control began to crumble. "Everyone, please calm down." But no one was calming down. The flashes now came in rhythmic bursts, capturing every flicker of panic on her face, every unbothered breath Darius took. The entire world seemed to be watching, and the longer he stayed silent, the more powerful he became. The young guard, Torres, shifted again, whispering, "Sir, do you want me to?" Darius turned his head slightly, his gaze steady. "No need." His voice wasn't loud, but it had gravity, the kind that stopped movement. Lena tried again, desperation creeping into her tone. "Mr. Cole, if I'd known." "You didn't ask," he interrupted. That broke her. The words were simple, but they pierced deeper than any accusation could. A reporter near the velvet rope murmured, "That line's going viral already." Lena tried to gather herself, adjusting her clipboard with trembling hands. "Sir, if you'll just step aside, I'll verify everything." "You've already verified enough," Darius said. Then he turned slightly, addressing the growing circle of cameras without looking directly at them. "The world's full of people who mistake access for worth. Tonight's just another reminder." The tone was soft, almost reflective, but it carried like a sermon through the warm Los Angeles air. A ripple of applause started from somewhere in the back. Small at first, hesitant, then it spread. Lena spun, bewildered. "What are you people doing?" But no one answered her. Torres looked down at the glowing tablet still clutched in her hands, now frozen on the welcome screen. His voice was low, careful. "Ma'am, the entire system's gone into lockdown. All access codes are being revalidated through Silence HQ." Lena's mouth opened. "HQ? Why?" Then realization hit her like a punch to the chest. This wasn't coincidence. Her humiliation wasn't a glitch in protocol. She was standing in front of the man whose company controlled the entire digital backbone of the event. The lighting, the feeds, the press passes, even the security scans she trusted to measure worth. And she had dismissed him in front of the world. The LED screen overhead flickered again, the event slogan fading out, replaced by a single phrase in white text against black. "Truth doesn't need permission." The crowd gasped. Phones shot upward. Darius didn't move, didn't even look up. His gaze stayed on Lena, who now looked smaller than she ever had. Not because he had towered over her, but because the entire narrative had shifted beneath her feet. "Who are you?" she whispered. The question came too late. The world already knew. "I told you," Darius said quietly. "You should have checked again." And with that, he turned slightly, not walking away yet, not giving her the satisfaction of an ending, just enough to show that he wasn't trapped here. She was. Cameras flashed, capturing the perfect composition. Him in the foreground, calm and resolute, her behind him, frozen in disbelief, the red carpet glowing like fire under their feet. A journalist's voice cracked through the tension. "Mr. Cole, what happens next?" Darius's expression didn't change. Only his tone did, lower now, edged with something colder. "What happens next," he said, "is accountability." He slipped his phone into his jacket pocket and walked past her, not another word, not another glance. The guards didn't stop him this time. They stepped aside instinctively, as if guided by something greater than orders, respect, maybe, or shame. Behind him, Lena's voice trembled into the microphone. "This isn't fair." But the crowd was no longer listening. The applause followed Darius like a rising tide. Each step he took was a statement. Each camera flash a witness. The night that had begun as a showcase of fame had transformed into a reckoning. One unfolding live, in real time, across every platform on Earth. And somewhere deep inside the theater, unseen yet fully aware, the silent servers recorded every second of it. Every word. Every silence. Every humiliation turned lesson. Outside, beneath the glare of lights and judgment, Darius Cole walked the red carpet like a man reclaiming ground that had always been his. Not with anger, but with quiet, devastating dignity. The storm had arrived, and it was just beginning. The theater's glass facade gleamed behind him, reflecting 1,000 lights, flashes, spotlights, the glow of screens streaming the chaos worldwide. Inside, the orchestra was still playing, but the music sounded faint, distant, irrelevant. The real show was happening outside, on the marble steps, where truth had decided to take the microphone. Lena Harrow stood rigid, trembling in place. Clipboard clutched against her chest as if it could shield her from what she had unleashed. Her authority had drained away, leaving only a thin-shell defiance and fear. Around her, the red carpet, once a symbol of status, had become a courtroom floor. Darius Cole didn't have to say another word. The world was already speaking for him. Look at her face. She's realizing who he is. He OWNS the broadcast. She tried to block the man who funded the event. The noise grew, merging with the mechanical world cameras and the electronic buzz of phones. Reporters were narrating live, words tumbling over one another. Some spoke with awe, others with outrage, but all of them were united by a single truth. This wasn't gossip anymore. It was history. Lena's earpiece came back to life with a crackle. "Control to Lena. What the hell is happening out there? The board is on the line." Her voice broke. He's taken over the feed." A pause. Then the voice replied, shaken. "Taken over? Lena, he owns the network. He built the infrastructure." The color drained from her face completely. Darius turned slightly, his voice calm but cutting. "You can put the earpiece down now. They can't help you." It wasn't cruelty. It was inevitability. His tone was that of a surgeon delivering a diagnosis long after the symptoms had spoken for themselves. She dropped her clipboard without realizing it. The sound of plastic hitting marble echoed louder than it should have. Behind them, the massive LED display changed again. The words "live feed," "silence network" appeared across the screen, followed by a clear image of Darius himself, the broadcast framing him as if it knew exactly where to point. The crowd erupted. Inside the building, the event's host, still unaware of the full situation, was trying to van between award segments. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a brief technical issue. Please bear with us." But there was no bearing with it. Every monitor inside had gone dark except for one image. Darius Cole, standing tall on the red carpet outside, holding the entire institution in the palm of his hand. Lena stumbled forward, her voice trembling. "You can't do this. This isn't your stage." Darius turned to face her fully. The calm in his expression bordered on frightening. You built a world on illusions, Ms. Harrow. Red carpets, velvet ropes, scanners at the side who's allowed to be seen. You thought that gave you control. He took one deliberate step closer, his shadow cutting through the bright wash of the spotlights. But here's the truth. You've never owned a single second of the world you work for. You're just operating inside someone else's design. Lena shook her head, eyes wide. You're trying to humiliate me. He paused. No, I'm trying to remind you what happens when arrogance meets accountability. The crowd cheered, a wave of applause rolling across the barricades. Even some of the photographers stopped shooting long enough to clap. Lena's lip trembled. You don't get to decide what happens to me. Darius's gaze hardened just slightly. I already have. And as if cued by his words, a black sedan pulled up behind a velvet rope. The car door opened and Nia Mendez, Darius's chief operations officer, the same voice on the phone, stepped out, dressed in sleek black. She moved with precision, headset glinting under the lights. Mr. Cole, she said crisply, board authorization complete. Protocol 7 escalated to Directive 1. The crowd murmured. The reporters didn't know what Directive 1 meant, but they could feel its weight. Darius nodded once. Proceed. Nia turned toward Lena, her tone courteous but lethal. Ms. Harrow, your staff ID is now inactive. Your access to the event systems has been revoked. Lena blinked, stunned. What were you talking about? Nia raised a sleek black tablet. On its screen, a digital profile of Lena Harrow, event director, appeared, followed instantly by a red banner. Terminated. Lena's earpiece beeped once, then went dead. Her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. When she pulled it out, it displayed the same word across every app, access denied. She looked up, panic written across her face. You can't do this to me. I've worked for this company for 12 years. Darius's voice was low. And you just told the world you didn't recognize the man who built it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone yelled, "Oh my God, he's firing her live." Another shouted, "She deserves it." Lena's breathing quickened. You think this makes you powerful? She snapped, her voice breaking. You're proving me right. You think you can humiliate people because you have money, because you own everything. For the first time, Darius's expression shifted, not anger, but sorrow, the kind of quiet disappointment that carried more weight than rage ever could. I don't own everything, he said softly. I just refuse to be owned by people who think they do. That line detonated like thunder. The crowd roared. Phones shot upward again, recording, streaming, narrating. The story was already spreading across continents. Hashtag Red Carpet Reckoning, hashtag Darius Cole, hashtag Truth Doesn't Need Permission. Nia leaned closer to him, murmuring something into her headset. Sir, network viewership has just crossed 37 million live. Darius didn't respond. His eyes stayed locked on Lena, whose tears now glistened under the spotlights. You can end this, she whispered. Please, just end it. He studied her for a long moment, then gave a small nod. You're right. It's time. He turned toward the cameras, the world's eyes. His voice, when he spoke, was clear and steady, amplified not by microphones but by silence. Every year, this event celebrates vision, but what we've seen tonight isn't vision. It's blindness. The blindness of people who think appearance defines worth, that control equals dignity, that access equals superiority. He took a breath, his tone deepening. Dignity doesn't need permission. Respect isn't granted by scanners or status. And power... He looked down at Lena, who could no longer meet his gaze. Power isn't proven by volume. It's proven by restraint. The crowd cheered again, louder than ever. Even the reporters stopped talking long enough to listen. The LED screen flickered once more. Across the skyline of downtown Los Angeles, every digital billboard connected to the Global Vision broadcast switched to a single image. Darius Cole, founder and chairman, Silence Global Networks. In one sweeping moment, every spectator, every journalist, every official in that building realized the truth. He wasn't just a sponsor. He was the owner of the broadcasting network, the red carpet rights, the global event infrastructure itself. Lena Harrow hadn't just embarrassed a man. She had tried to eject the very person who had built the platform beneath her feet. The sound of applause became a roar, washing over the marble steps like thunder. Darius didn't smile. He didn't need to. The dignity of his silence was louder than the ovation. He turned to Nia. Let the record show this moment as our reminder. Humility is the highest form of professionalism. Yes, sir, she said. Lena stood frozen, tears streaking down her cheeks, as Darius walked past her toward the theater doors. The guards, who had once blocked his way, now stood at attention, opening the glass entrance like a ceremonial passage. Inside, a standing ovation awaited him. Outside, the world was still catching its breath, and as he stepped into the light of the grand lobby, Darius paused, turned slightly back toward the red carpet, and said softly, not for Lena, not even for the cameras, but for everyone watching who had ever been underestimated. The next time you question who belongs, remember tonight. Then he disappeared inside, the applause from within joining the cheers from outside, two worlds colliding into one deafening truth. The red carpet had never seen a moment like it. Inside the Global Vision Theater, the world had already changed. The audience, a constellation of A-list names, executives, and international press, was on its feet. The orchestra, caught in the energy of the moment, had stopped playing altogether. All eyes turned toward the grand entrance as Darius Cole stepped through the glass doors and onto the crimson carpet that stretched through the lobby. Every movement he made was deliberate. Every breath felt amplified. The applause followed him like a rising tide, echoing off the vaulted ceilings and chandeliers. It wasn't the applause of celebrity. It was the applause of awakening. Darius walked calmly toward the stage, flanked by Nia Mendez, whose tablet still glowed faintly with the silence insignia. Security parted before them. Staff members who had once bowed to Lena's authority now lowered their eyes as he passed. There was no anger in his stride, only quiet inevitability. The host, voice trembling, spoke into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the chairman and founder of Silence Global Networks, Mr. Darius Cole. The ovation swelled into thunder. He ascended the steps, paused at the podium, and waited. Slowly, the applause faded until there was only silence, that electric, expectant kind that precedes history. The cameras were rolling again, not out of chaos now, but reverence. Darius's gaze swept the room. The actors in their tuxedos, the producers with forced smiles, the executives whispering into phones. He saw in their faces what he'd always known. This industry didn't understand humility until it was forced to watch it. He began to speak, his voice measured and low, every word resonating like a drumbeat. Moments define industries. But sometimes, industries forget who build the moments. The audience hung on every syllable. Tonight, I arrived not as a celebrity, not as a guest, but as a man who believed that respect still matters more than recognition. And yet, before I could even step through the doors of an event that my company built, I was told I didn't belong. Murmurs filled the air, faces turned downward, some whispered apologies beneath their breath. I was asked for proof, Darius continued, his tone deepening. Proof that I was who I claimed to be. And when that proof was presented, it was still rejected. Not because of what it said, but because of who was holding it. The line hit like lightning. Several audience members nodded, eyes glistening. That, he said, is not a system failure. That's a moral one. A hush settled over the theater. Even the sound technicians had stopped moving. In every industry, business, media, art, we've built gates. Gates that pretend to protect quality, but too often protect ego. Gates that turn people into credentials. Gates that confuse humility for weakness. His voice hardened. Tonight, those gates fell. Applause started again, hesitant at first, then swelling into something unstoppable. He waited, letting it crest and fall before continuing. You see, I didn't come here tonight to humiliate anyone. I came to remind everyone that respect must not be conditional, that dignity must never be delayed, and that true leadership is not loud. He turned his head slightly toward the cameras, and by extension, toward the millions watching worldwide. Leadership is quiet. It listens before it acts. And when it must speak, it doesn't raise its voice, it raises a standard. The audience stood again. A wave of applause crashed through the theater, longer and louder this time. Even those who had whispered doubts minutes earlier were clapping now, not out of fear, but out of recognition. When the noise finally softened, Darius looked toward the side stage where Lena Harrow stood, surrounded by security but untouched. Her mascara had streaked. Her clipboard was gone. She looked small, human, fragile. He didn't glare. He didn't smirk. He simply acknowledged her, a nod of understanding, not vengeance. "To Ms. Harrow," he said softly, "and to anyone who has ever forgotten that power is borrowed, not owned, I hope this night reminds you, empathy is not a liability. It's the highest form of intelligence." Gasps spread to the audience, followed by applause that carried emotion rather than spectacle. Then Darius turned back to the crowd. His tone softened. "To those who watch this unfold online, to everyone who has ever been dismissed, underestimated, or silenced, let this be your reminder. You don't need permission to stand tall. You don't need validation to have value." The LED screens around the auditorium flickered, displaying live comments flooding in from around the world. "This changed me." Darius Cole was rewriting what power looks like. Integrity is a new luxury. He gave a small smile, the faintest trace of warmth breaking through his calm composure. "Humiliation ends when truth enters a room," he said. And tonight, truth walked the carpet. The theater erupted again. The ovation rolled like thunder through the rafters, through the lobby, through the marble facade, spilling out into the city streets, where hundreds more were gathered, watching the screens outside. When the applause finally ebbed, Darius leaned closer to the microphone. His final words were slow, deliberate, not a speech anymore, but a message carved into memory. Power doesn't scream. It simply waits until silence is the loudest sound in the room. He stepped back. The stage lights caught the faint sheen of his cufflinks, platinum, understated, the same ones that had glimmered under 1,000 flashes just an hour earlier. The host, visibly shaken, returned to the stage but didn't speak right away. The audience was still standing, clapping, cheering. Some were crying. The show, the awards, the performances, the competition no longer mattered. History had already been written. Darius Cole turned, gave one last nod to Nia, and descended the stairs. As he passed Lena, he stopped for half a second, long enough to whisper something only she could hear. "Rebuild, don't retaliate." Then he continued forward, disappearing into the golden light of the lobby. Outside, the red carpet was still crowded. Reporters shouted questions he didn't answer. Fans reached out, their cheers a wall of gratitude and disbelief. He paused at the top of the marble steps and looked out over the chaos. The flashing lights, the chants of his name, the city skyline beyond. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he adjusted his cufflink, gave a small nod to Nia, and stepped into the waiting black car. As the door closed, a final flash illuminated the side of the theater, the massive LED screen now bearing a single, silent phrase in silver letters. "Dignity doesn't need a stage." The world would replay that line for years. Inside the car, as the applause faded behind him, Darius finally exhaled. The weight of everything that had just happened sank into stillness. He glanced out the window at the shimmering lights, the same lights that had once blinded him on arrival, now dim, small, harmless. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. The verdict had been delivered, and the world had listened. If you like this story, please subscribe to support this channel.